Trilogy is the third studio album by Emerson Lake and Palmer. It is celebrating its 50th anniversary, released on July 6th, 1972. They are a progressive rock group from the 70s. They were a power trio and also considered to be a supergroup. The band consisted of Keith Emerson, a keyboardist who was also in a prog rock band called The Nice, Greg Lake, bassist, vocalist, and guitarist, who was also in King Crimson, and Carl Palmer, the drummer, who later went on to form the supergroup Asia. This brings us to Trilogy, the third studio album. It was recorded in London and was a big hit, reaching number 2 on the UK albums chart and number 5 on the Billboard 200. The most recognizable song is called From the Beginning. I'll talk about that in a few minutes. The band reminded me a lot of Peter Gabriel era Genesis. They had a similar progressive rock sound, lots of complex keyboard arrangements. The album is a little different than their previous album, Tarkus, which had one long song on one side, but this album has a collection of shorter progressive rock songs, although on the first side has a 3-part suite and the second side has 2 8-minute songs with only 3 songs on the second side. So the album cover was created by Hypnosis, shows the 3 members of the group, and then the gatefold shows 3 members in Epping Forest. They actually asked Salvador Dali to paint the gatefold, but he wanted $50,000, so they decided not to go with him. And let's talk about the songs now. So the first song is a 3-part suite. So it starts with the Endless Enigma Part 1. Very mysterious type of sound. Reminds me of a soundtrack to an old science fiction film, maybe one of those B movies or a Roger Corman movie. Lots of weird sounds, piano playing, odd percussion. The song eventually takes off, sounds like a typical 70s prog rock song, similar to bands like Yes or Genesis, but kind of a slightly darker tone. There are a lot of complex progressive rock arrangements, some softer vocal sections, and other sections where the instruments do come together. A lot of vocal parts remind me a lot of Peter Gabriel from the early Genesis albums. The organ sounds very similar. Towards the end of the song, they bring back these futuristic and haunting bass sounds. This goes into Fugue, an instrumental, just 2 minutes, and just classical piano music. It serves as a break between the 2 songs, and going into Endless Enigma Part 2. The third part, which is only 2 minutes, but they do pick up the pace with some faster tempos, some bells, some prog rock style keyboard sounds, and Greg Lake sings the final verse in this one. Then the big hit, From the Beginning, has an acoustic intro, very iconic and memorable. It's kind of like a folk rock song, has those softer vocals and acoustic guitar playing. One of their signature songs, there's an electric guitar solo played in a clean tone. It works very well with the song. They incorporate some proggy keyboards in the mix later on. Then there's The Sheriff, pretty cool song. Starts with a drum solo. The song is more of an upbeat prog rock song. Reminded me a little of early Genesis, especially in the vocals. It sounded a lot like Peter Gabriel. The song tells the story of a sheriff in the Old West, and the song includes lots of intricate keyboard arrangements. The song ends with carnival sounds and a cartoon style, going those sound effects. Then Hoedown, an instrumental, and like the title suggests, it's a hoedown, but a progressive rock style with keyboards being the dominant instrument, a faster paced drum beat. One of the happier and higher energy songs on the album, a mix of classical music and prog. They have some futuristic keyboards and other cool rhythms, and the song was taken from a ballet called Rodeo by Aaron Copland, and they got his permission, of course, to change the arrangement. And it's a song they play live, or they played live. The end of the song is a melody that is very recognizable. Then we start side 2. We have Trilogy, a longer song at almost 9 minutes. The intro showcases softer piano arrangements and a mellow vocal style. The piano playing dominates the first section of the song. This takes a turn around 3 minutes, and they add in drums and futuristic sounding keyboards. This part of the song has an extended instrumental section. It gets very complex and dense. There's some interesting arrangements here. You hear some time signature changes and thick bass sounds with some keyboard melodies. Living Sin, it's very different. It actually stands out, has these deeper vocal styles, maybe a ZZ Top style with a blues kind of singing. But then he also lets out some of these hard rock style screams, maybe reminding me a little of Roger Daltrey from The Who. The rhythm is very complex, some stop-start riffs, a complex drum beat. They add some cool drum fills and short 3-minute song, but a nice change of pace on the album. Final song, Abaddon's Bolero, an instrumental. Type of song that slowly builds. It starts with like this marching band drum beat, a softer keyboard melody. And this melody is in the style of a flute. The melody continues for the first few minutes, and then it begins to like evoke the feel of a science fiction movie with like the heroes getting ready to go into battle. As the song progresses, it makes you feel as like the enemies are getting closer. It's just a slow building song, but it never really takes off. It just gets more complex as it moves along. It's the final song of the album, and it's rather epic, and like it does have a kind of like abrupt ending. So that was fairly interesting. So that's all I'm going to say. This was actually my first review of an Emerson, Lake and Palmer album. Since I mentioned Genesis a few times, why don't you check out my ranking of the Genesis albums, and I will put the link to that right there. Please remember, like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.